Alright, so let's look at the first one. The height of a cone is equal to the radius of its base. The radius of the sphere is equal to the radius of the base of the cone. The ratio of the volume of the cone to the volume of the sphere is whichever of those fractions. So let's look at the first information. So the radius is equal to the height, so r and r. So the volume of the cone, VC, is equal to 1/3 pi r squared by h, but remember h is now equal to r. So that's equal to 1/3 pi r squared by r, which is going to be r cubed. Alright, so remember the sphere then is 4/3 pi r cubed. So they're going to match up, aren't they? So you can see they will cancel out. So the ratio of the volume of the cone to the sphere, so VC over VS, is equal to 1/4. So the answer is B. Let's go on to question 2. How many distinguishable ways can the letters of the word minimum be arranged? So let's count the number of letters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 letters. And remember, we can rearrange them. Okay, so the first letter we can rearrange 7 times. And then the second letter 6 times because we've used up 1. So we just keep going. So that's equal to 7 factorial. Do that in your calculator and we will get 5,040 variations. On to question 3. So we have a graph here now and it's an asymptote. Alright, so if you look at the denominator here, this will be the vertical line the graph does not reach. Okay, so x plus 1 is the denominator. So if x is equal to -1, then the denominator will be equal to 0. So we cannot have a x over 0 as a ratio, as it's undefined. Okay, so this graph, it will be trying to reach it on either side like that. So the line x equal to -1 is unreachable, and that's the only solution. Okay, so there's going to be just one solution, which is part 2. So the answer is A, just one line. What is the probability of getting at least 3 heads when flipping 4 coins? So let's look at least 3 heads. So that would mean that if you had 4 options, you know, so remember it's a half for each option when you're flipping a coin, okay, which is not biased. So that's 1 in 16, okay, for four trials. Alright, so if it's 3 options, at least 3 options, so greater than the number of options, so that would mean probability of 3 or 4. Okay, and remember we're going to plus our answers because of the logic rule. So the probability of 3 would be, so we could have like 3 out of the 4 heads. Okay, so that means that we could have 4C3, which is 3 out of 4 combinations, by the probability of 1 occurrence, which would be 1/16. Okay, that's the first option, so that's done. And the probability of having all heads, okay, would be 1 in 16. That would occur only once. So we have 4 here. 4 multiplied by 1/16 plus 1/16, okay, will give you 5/16. So the answer is C. Question 5. The positive 0 of the quadratic is to the nearest tenth. So we got to work it out and we got to take the positive value. So let's write in the quadratic formula. So let's go with x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And let's assign our a, b and c. So a is equal to 3, b is equal to -4, and c is equal to -5. Alright, so what we're going to do now, put them all into formula real quick. So we're going to go minus b is 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 by 3 by 5, which would by negative 5, which is the square root of 76. Okay, just put them in as such, over 2a, which is 6. So when we compute it out, we'll get a result of approximately 2.2 to the nearest 10. So the answer will be E. Pretty straightforward there. Okay, question 6. In the figure above, S is the set of all points in the shaded region. We need to find where they vary to 2x and y. So we're going to look down now, and remember 2x, okay, means that it's going to be stretched on the x-axis. So you've got to look at the stretched out shape. So that means it's going to be this one here. You can see there, it's number C, isn't it? Okay, on to question 7. So we have a square prism inscribed in a right circular cylinder of radius 3 and height 4. So we want to find the volume difference between the prism and the cylinder. Okay, so that means that if we sketch it out here, we have a square base here inside the cylinder, and it's sitting inside there in 3D. We want to find out the difference between both of those volumes. Okay, so if we look down on plan, we have a square, and from the center of the square we have a length of 3, which is the radius of the cylinder. Okay, so if we join everything up and we put in our right angle here, we can see there's Pythagoras Theorem going to be relevant here. So we can say a squared is equal to 3 squared plus 3 squared. So a squared is equal to this 18, and then we divide across, then get the square root of 18, and that will give us a result of 2 root 3 is equal to a. Alright, so the difference between the two volumes then, so the volume of the prism, Vp, minus subtracted from the volume of the cone of the cylinder. So we're going to get volume of cylinder, which is pi r squared h, which is pi by 3 squared by the height is 6, minus the volume of the square down here. So let's look at that. Okay, the base is going to be a squared, so it'll be a squared by 6, the height. Okay, so if we put all that into our calculator, remember a is 2 root 3, we'll get 54 pi minus 6 by a squared, which will be 4 by 3, 6 will be actually, if we square this, we'll get 4 by 3, which is 12. 12 by 6 then is 72, you know. So let's see what answer we get. So the answer for question 7 is 61.6. And that's C. So a tricky one there, but take your time if you want to go back over that, pause the video. Question 8. What is the length of the major axis of the ellipse? Alright, so we have the equation here. So if it's on the major axis, okay, that means it's the longer one. So you can see that side there is longer because it's 20y squared. It's going to stretch out further in that direction. So that's the major axis. And remember, on the major axis, you know, if we want to get the intercept, we set the x is equal to 0, the opposite. So x is equal to 0 for the major. Okay, so that means we'll have 20y squared is equal to 200. Divide across by your 20, and y squared is equal to 10. So y is equal to the square root of 10. And you can see that's 3.16. So the answer is A. On to question 9. The fifth term in the arithmetic sequence, so arithmetic is really important here, is 26, and the eighth term is 41. So Tn is our formula, which is the first term plus n minus 1 by the difference, okay, and that's the first, and d is the difference between two consecutive terms. Right, so let's put it all together. So T5 is equal to sub in the a and 5 minus 1, which is 4. So a plus 4d is equal to the total of 26, and T8 is equal to a plus 8 minus 1 is 7 by d is equal to 41. Okay, so what we're going to do now is subtract them from each other because we can cancel. So let's subtract t5 from t8. So t8 minus t5, if we subtract 5 from 8, that will give us a result of 3d is equal to 15. So therefore d is equal to 3, or 15 over 3, which is going to be equal to 5. Alright, so if d is equal to 5, substitute it in here, and then we get a plus 4 by 5 is equal to 26. So therefore a is equal to 6. So the answer here is option D. Alright, on to question 10. So what is the measure of one of the larger angles in the parallelogram above? Okay, so we have the diagram. So I'm just going to sketch this out now because I want to do this really efficiently and quickly. So we have an angle up here, okay, which is, you know, the outside angle. But remember, if we correspond, okay, angles, this angle here matches this angle down here. So both of those will sum up to 180 degrees as well. So 180 degrees. So if we get this angle down here, we can subtract it from 180 to get the larger angle. Alright, so what is the angle down in the corner? So let's look at the triangle, let's look at the dimensions. So if we go up vertically to 0, 1, that will give us a height difference of 3. And if we go across then, okay, to 0 from negative 2, that's 2. So the angle there, okay, tan of that angle, theta, is equal to 3 over 2. And then tan inverse of 3 over 2 is equal to theta. And that angle will be 56.3 degrees. So that's the acute angle down here. We're going to get the obtuse angle. So 180 minus theta is equal to 123.7 degrees. So that's going to be answer B. Question 12. We have a function here, 3x squared minus 3 over x minus 1. And we have k. K is going to be a variable when x is equal to 1. So for what values of k is f a continuous function? So it cannot be 1 anyway, okay? Cannot be 1 because if it's 1 we'd have 0 as denominator and that's undefined. So when k, so it will switch to k then after 1. So when x is equal to 1 then the result will be k. So that's not possible. So there's no value of k. Just think about it. If x is equal to 1 then it's not possible. Okay, so the next part in 13 is functions. So we have 2x squared minus 4 and g of x is 2 to the power of x. So we want to get g of f of 1. So let's do f of 1 first of all. So always do the one in the center first. So that'll be equal to 2 by 1 squared minus 4, which is equal to negative 2. So now we're going to go g of f of 1. So that'll be g of negative 2. So we bring up in our result. And remember that's 2 to the power of negative 2. Apply this formula and we will get a result of 1 over 2 to the power of 2, applying the reciprocal rule. And remember that's going to be 1 over 4. So the answer will be C. Let's go on to 14. So we have f of x here. It's 3 by root 5x. So 3 by root 5x. Okay, so if that's f of x, let's get the inverse. So I'll just show you how to get the inverse now. Okay, so f inverse process. So let's put y instead of f of x and let's invert it. So y is equal to 3 root 5x. So square both sides to cancel the square root. So we're going to square here and square over here. So we're going to get y squared is equal to 9 by 5, which is going to be 45 by x. So therefore x is equal to y squared over 45. Just divide across. Alright, so now we're going to call that f. We have it inverted, so that's f minus 1 of x. Okay, so we're going to sub in then or 15. So if -1, which is the inverse symbol, and we sub in 15 then, and we're going to get then, we could actually swap the x and the y there, okay? So because the variable is going to be x, we could swap them, you know, when you have it inverted. But anyway, let's sub in our values. So that's going to be 225 over 45, which goes in 5 times really neatly. So the answer is C. Okay, let's go on to question 15. So we have this graph up here, a trigonometric graph. It looks like a sinusoidal function, so we know it's not going to be the cosine. So it's either going to be the sine of 4x or it's going to be the negative sine of 4x plus pi. But if we look at the period here, okay, so if we say that 4x, okay, is equal to 2 pi over c, then we know then the cycle there is actually going to be pi over 4. Okay, because it's going to be, it's 4 times greater, okay, so we just divide across by 4. So it has to be sine of 4x. So the answer is A and 1 only. It cannot be this one because that's negative sine, and that means it would be inverted, so it would look like that, okay, from this point onwards. So that's not possible. That would be minus sine x. Okay, so the answer again is A, because the period matches and it's positive function, which will start and look like that. Alright, so let's go on to the next one. Question 16. A bit of work in this one now. So if we look at the trigonometric function here, 2 sine squared minus 3 is equal to 3 cos of x. Between those degree range, okay, so we're going to look at the equation here and simplify. So if we have cos and sine, okay, we're going to use a trigonometric identity of sine squared x plus cos squared x is equal to 1. So remember, sine squared x then is equal to 1 minus cos squared x. So we'll introduce the variable now, a is equal to cos of x. Now this is going to simplify everything up here. So I can replace the sine squared x by 1 minus a squared. So we get 2 by 1 minus a squared. Getting that from here, just replacing the cos squared with a squared. And then we're going to get minus 3 is equal to 3 cos of x, which is 3a. So let's multiply in and bring it all together. So I'm going to do this real quick. So it'll be 2 minus 2a squared minus 3. Bring the 3 over and be minus 3a is equal to 0. And then I get minus 2a squared minus 3a. And then minus 1 is equal to 0. Change all the signs. So we have 2a squared minus 3 plus 3a plus 1 is equal to 0. And if we factorize those, we get 2a plus 1 by 2a minus 1 by a plus 1. Okay, now you know these. Okay, so 2a is equal to negative 1, or a is equal to negative 1 itself. So a is equal to minus 1 over 2, or a is equal to minus 1. Okay, again. So if we look at the range values up here and we want to work out, okay, what values we got. So if we look at ASTC, remember ASTC, and we're working with cosine here. So between 90 degrees and 270 degrees is going to be the arc over here. Okay, and that means there is going to be they're both negative there. So ASTC, so that means that the positive ones are here and here. So there's actually going to be two solutions over here, because you'll have the negative 1 over here, and the negative half will actually be here and actually down here as well, because they will both be negative halves. Okay, so there's actually 3 solutions there. So the answer is D. On to to question 17. If A is the inverse tan of negative 3 over 4 and A plus B is equal to 315, then B is equal to. So let's work this one out first. So we're going to get tan inverse of negative 3 over 4. So we get A is equal to 36.86 degrees. Okay, and this is negative. So if we look at the ASTC, so all are negative, all are positive, sine are positive, tan is positive, cosine is positive. So if it's negative, then it can be here or here, the second or the fourth quadrant. So it has to be in the second, as it cannot be in the fourth because the total angle is 315. So we're going to go to the second quadrant. So that means if we subtract the angle here, okay, off the axis from 180, so 180 minus 36.86, that will give us this angle here from 0 degrees. So that result will be 143.13. Okay, so that's A is equal to 143.13. So therefore B, subtract the 143 from 315, and we will get 171.839. So the answer here is 87. So the answer here is D. On to 18. Observers at locations due north and due south, so they're in opposite directions. They sight a rocket which is 10 kilometers high. So they're at two different angles of elevation, 80.5 and 68 degrees. So let's sketch it out. So it'll be like this. So one is steeper than the other, 80.5 and 68. So just draw a sketch always. So that's 10 kilometers high. Alright, so we want to find that distance between the two observers. So if we look at this one here, we can use the tan function. So tan of 80.5 degrees is equal to the opposite, which is 10, over the adjacent. Let's call that A. So therefore, just cross multiply. So we get 10 over 10 of 80.5 degrees. That's going to be A. B then is going to be 10 over 10 of the opposite angle here, 68 degrees. Okay, so let's put those into a calculator and plus them together, and we will get a result of 5.71. So the answer will be C. Okay, on to 19. The vertex angle of an isosceles triangle is 35 degrees. It's the one on the top. The base is 10 centimeters. How many centimeters are in the perimeter? So again, sketch it out clearly. 35 is here, 10 is down here. So now we got to look at the geometry and zoom in here. So we can use a vertical line down here, create a right angle and create a side 5. Now let's look at that on its side and split the angle at the top. So we'll split the 35 into 17.5 by 2. So 17.5 and then 5 opposite. Alright, so now we're going to get the hypotenuse because we want to get the side of the triangle, which is the hypotenuse. So if we have the opposite and the hypotenuse, we can use the sine function. So we go sine of 17.5 degrees is equal to opposite 5 over the hypotenuse. Let's cross multiply here. So h is equal to 5 over the sine of 17.5 degrees. Let's compute that out with your calculator and we will get 16.62, and that's the side. Okay, so 16.62. So we need two sides and the base. So two sides plus the base be 2 brackets 16.62 there plus the 10. Okay, and that will give us a result, a total length of 43.3. So the answer is D. Okay, if the graph below represents the function f of x, this is question 20, which of the following could represent the equation of the inverse graph? So if we look at it here, we can see there that it's, you know, we have it's to the right of the x-axis. Okay, so if we look carefully, we can see that if it is the inverse of f, then we have to change the sign. So this would be a negative. This must be the ones with the -3, because this is down here. Okay, it's below the x-axis, so that's the shift. And then you see it's on the right hand side, so if it's on the right, that'll be positive, you know. So if it's in the brackets, then, you know, you change the sign in the bracket, so it's going to be number C.